In this lesson, we are looking at algebra. Now, what is algebra? In mathematics, we always try to avoid definitions. This is to allow people to understand whatever they want to understand. Now, what is algebra? I am not going to define it, but I'm going to give examples to try and explain what algebra is. And so let us start with the following situation. Imagine that there is a class of 15 learners, and then a number of learners come in to join the 15 learners. And then you are asked a question to say, how many learners are in that class now? What would be your challenge? Your challenge would be to write the complete number of learners in that class after the other learners have joined. And so this is where algebra comes in to help us be able to write a statement to illustrate what has gone on. So what does algebra allow us to do? In lower grades, for example, you remember something like this. This is what we are doing. Or but then at some point later, letters were introduced. We stopped using the box. We started using the letters. And so the same statements were written so this was at a lower age. This was at the lower grades, grade 1 specifically. This came in at the higher grades. So what allows us to do this or to write in this manner is what we call algebra. Algebra allows us to use something to represent a value that we do not know. And so now let's get back to our situation and see how we could write using algebra. We are told that there were 15 learners in this particular class. So another group of learners came in. We don't know their value. So who would we write to say, okay, let us use a letter to represent that value that we don't know. So we'd say and so this would be the statement that would be written. Can we see equal to something? No, we can't. Why? We do not know what the value of y is. Number one. Number two, we do not know the total number of learners in the class when the other group joined in. If we were given a total number, we would have written something different like this. There were 15 learners in this class, and a certain number of learners joined in. After that, the total number in the class came to 25. And so we can write that statement in this manner. 15 plus y is equal to 25. We are able to write it in this manner because we were told that when the other group joined in, the total class, the total number of learners in that class became 25. And so we can write it in this manner. But where we are not told the total number of the class, but we are informed that there were 15 and another group joined in, we cannot write it with equal to because we do not know what they would come to. So we simply end it in this line, 15 plus y. That is what algebra allows us to. Let's understand how we do things in algebra, okay? So in algebra, the letter that we have used has a special name, and it is called a variable. It is called a variable. Variable from the word vary, because it is something that will contain different values. Different values. For example, if I say my variable is x, I'm saying x can contain 2, x can contain 3, x can contain -5, x can contain anything. And that's why it is called a variable. So it does not mean that it will always contain that same number. No, it can contain any other number. So when I say in this situation, our variable is x, meaning x will be used to contain certain values. Okay? And so that is number 1, term. The second is the word term. Now, this word term is when I have written, for example, I have written x. This x alone is called a term. Okay? If we write -2b, this -2b, the way they are, it is called a term. Okay? If I write 3y, that 3y is called a term. So these are called terms. But what if I just write the number 3 without any letter? Would that be a term? Yes, it might be a term, but it has a special name. And the special name is that this one, which has no variable, is called a constant. It is called a constant. 3 is a constant. It is called a constant. So, what do we see now from here? We see that there is a variable there, it is called a term. There is -2b, it's called a term. There is 3y, it's called a term. When it comes to these 3, it is called a constant. I think you'll see that when there is no variable in that particular term, then that term is called a constant. When the term does not have a variable, then it is called a what? A constant. Okay? The third, or before I go to the third, now this term has 2 things in it. One, there is the variable, which we have talked about, and the variable we are saying, we are using the letters here. In this case, we may use any other symbol to be a variable, but in this case, we're using letters. So these letters are what we're referring to variables. And remember, we are saying variables because they can contain varying numbers, different values. Now, so the term has a variable. It also has what we call the coefficient. Coefficient. For example, if you look at x, there is a coefficient here, although it's invisible. -2b, there is a coefficient here. 3y, there is a coefficient. So what is the coefficient here? Let's start with this one. In this one, in this term, -2b, the coefficient is -2. That's the coefficient. In this one, 3y, the coefficient is 3. Now, in my experience of teaching, people, when you ask people to say, what is the coefficient here, they'll say 0, because they can't see anything here. Now remember, if you cannot see anything here, it doesn't mean there's a 0. The coefficient here is 1. The same applies to a term that would be written -x like that. The coefficient is -1. That's a coefficient there. So the coefficient here is 1. So you have the variable, the coefficient, making up what is called a term. And when the term does not have a variable, but just a coefficient, it is called a constant. Okay? Then, the third one is what we call expression. So, there is a variable, there is a term. Now we're talking about an expression. So an expression is a combination when you combine terms with the addition sign or the subtraction sign. When you combine terms, remember even a constant is a term, but there's a special term called a constant. So when you combine terms with addition or with subtraction, then you have what is referred to as an expression. But the key is that it should not be equated to something. It should not be equated to something. So let's get back to that example we gave at first. We said 15 plus y. So this is an expression. Remember, there's no equal to here. It's an expression. The two terms are combined by the addition sign. Okay? Term, special term, constant, then there's that value. You can have 2a minus 2b, like that. This is an expression. You can have x plus y. That is an expression. So, what are we seeing? The combination of terms together, there may be 2, there may be 3, there may be 4, it doesn't matter. But as long as they're not equated to something, that which you have is an expression. It is an expression. And so, in algebra, we have a variable, we have a term, and then we have an expression. But we have also the fourth one. Okay? An equation. So when does something become an equation? When the two sides are connected by the equal sign. When the two sides are connected by the equal sign. Remember, from that example we had 15 plus y equals to 25. This is just to be an expression, but it now becomes an equation because it's equal to 25. So when the two sides, that is, the left-hand side and the right-hand side are connected by an equation, that statement becomes an equation. And so these are the terms that we use in algebra. You need to be very familiar with them for you to be able to answer questions in any way. Now, algebra helps you in a variety of situations, be it in science, wherever you may find some calculations, you can actually use these principles to be able to solve whatever problem you're encountering. So this ends our first lesson under algebra. Thank you so much.